Yo, what is up, YouTube? So, in my last video, I talked about getting laid off from big tech and what it's been like interviewing in today's job market. That video blew up way more than I expected, and I got a ton of comments. Some of you were super supportive and dropped some really solid insights. Others, well, not so much. But one comment I kept seeing over and over again was how AI is going to replace software engineers. Now, I don't buy that at all. In fact, I think it's missing the bigger picture. So in this video, I wanted to break down three of the biggest reasons why AI will never replace software engineers. Let's get into it. So my first point and why I believe this is the concept of model degradation. And this one is backed by actual research. So the thing that people forget about AI most of the time is that models don't just magically know things. They actually learn from data, and that data mostly comes from us, human created text and code and images, right? So here's the problem with that. As more AI generated content gets dumped online, future models are going to have to start training on their own outputs instead of fresh human data. And when that happens, things start to break down. So, a group of researchers from Oxford, Cambridge, and Toronto actually studied this exact problem that I'm talking about, and they published this in a Nature paper called AI Models Collapse When Trained on Recursively Generated Data. So, what the researchers of this paper essentially discovered is that as you train AI models generation over generation on AI generated content, we eventually see this phenomenon called model collapse. And what this means is that from the original probability distribution of data that we give to the first generation of the AI model, the next generation, you're going to see the tails of the distribution are going to start to disappear, which these are like the low probability rare events, right? So then as you keep training models generation over generation, that distribution becomes smaller and smaller and smaller until the point where you no longer have the original distribution at all. It's just complete garbage. Think of it like making a copy of an image, right? So like if you have an original image and then you make a copy, you're going to lose some detail. But if you keep making a copy of that copy, well, eventually over time, you're going to make the image completely unrecognizable to the point where it no longer looks like the original image at all. Now, in terms of software engineering, what this means is we cannot have an ecosystem of code that is solely written by AI, because if AI is going to write code and then they're going to train itself on AI generated code without any human intervention, eventually we will get to the point where we do not have working code anymore. So the paper describes three main types of errors that compound over generations, which contribute to this effective model collapse. So the first one that they talk about is statistical approximation error, and I'll read what this is and then summarize it. So this is the primary type of error which arises owing to the number of samples being finite and disappears as the number of samples tends to infinity. This occurs because over the generations, models tend to produce samples that the original model trained with real data is more likely to produce. At the same time, a much longer tail appears for later generations, and later generations start producing samples that would never be produced by the original model. That is, they start misperceiving reality based on errors introduced by their ancestors. So essentially what this is saying is that when you have a small sample size, it means that rare events do not get preserved over generations. The second error that the researchers explain is functional expressivity error. And so this is a secondary type of error arising owing to limited function approximator expressiveness. In particular, neural networks are only universal approximators as their size goes to infinity. As a result, a neural network can introduce non-zero likelihood outside the support of the original distribution, or zero likelihood inside the support of the original distribution. A simple example of the expressivity error is if we tried fitting a mixture of two Gaussians within a single Gaussian. Even if we have perfect information about the data distribution, that is an infinite number of samples, model errors will be inevitable. So to simplify this a little bit, what this is saying is that if you have a true data distribution, and let's say we have two Gaussian curves, Gaussian in this context just refers to a normal distribution bell curve, right? And we have our training data where we have one Gaussian distribution where, let's say, the peak is at 0, and then we have another Gaussian distribution where our peak is at 10. If your model is only allowed to capture one Gaussian distribution, there's no way it can represent this data accurately, and it can't have, in this case, it would be a bimodal distribution because you would have two peaks, right? So the model cannot do that if it's only able to represent one normal distribution. So this means that even if we had infinite amount of data, right, the best the model can do is squash those two Gaussian distributions into one curve and then maybe have a wider range of variance, right? But that is not actually representative of the true underlying data distribution. So this is essentially arguing that if we had this going forward with our training data, we're not able to accurately capture the true underlying data distribution. And lastly, they talk about functional approximation error, which is a secondary type of error arising primarily from the limitations of learning procedures, for example, structural bias of stochastic gradient descent or choice of objective. This error can be viewed as one arising in the limit of infinite data and perfect expressivity at each generation. So essentially what this means is that functional approximation error comes from the learning procedure itself, okay? This is not actually about the data or the model's expressiveness. No, this is about how we actually optimize the models. So essentially, even if you had an infinite amount of data again, and a perfectly expressive model, the training algorithms that we use, they themselves can inject small distortions into the model that will eventually compound over time, right? So essentially, these three errors are what this article claims contributes to the overall concept of model collapse. So for the researchers to actually test their hypothesis, what they used is a model called OPT125M. So this is an open source model from Meta. OPT stands for Open Pre-trained Transformer, and 125M refers to the number of parameters. So this is 125 million, roughly the size of about GPT-2. And they trained this model on a clean Wikipedia dataset. And what they found is that even in this controlled environment, over time, training the generation of model after generation, they saw the model collapse very fast from the original input. Okay, so we'll read what happened. This is the original input they gave. So it said, some started before 1360, was typically accomplished by a master mason and a small team of itinerant masons, supplemented by local parish laborers, according to Ponce Wright. But other authors reject this model, suggesting instead that leading architects designed the parish church towers based on the early examples of perpendicular. So then here in the first generation, the output was revival architecture such as St. John's Cathedral in London. The earliest surviving example of the perpendicular revival architecture is found in the 18th century Church of Our Lady of Guernsey, which dates from the late 19th century. There are two types of perpendicular churches. And then going down, you see in the next generation, they have architectures such as St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, of St. Peter's Basilica in Buenos Aires. There is no evidence that any of these buildings were built during the reign of Pope Innocent III, but it is possible that they may have been built during the reign of his successor, Pope Innocent. So it starts to get a little wonky, but still not too far from the original. Then you get to generation 5, and then you start to see mostly garbage. Okay, so you have ism, which had been translated into more than 100 languages, including English, French, German, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch, Sweden, blah, 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 just talking about random languages. So we're pretty much losing the original context of the input altogether. And then by generation 9, we just get pure garbage, right? So we get architecture, in addition to being home of some of the world's largest population of black-tailed jackrabbits, white-tailed jackrabbits, blue-tailed jackrabbits. No mention of jackrabbits was in the original input, right? If we go back to it. So in context, what we're saying here is that as we train these models over generation over generation, if we train them totally on an AI generated content, eventually we will just get garbage. All right. Code is no different than text. Essentially, if we have code made by totally AI generated, and we don't preserve any of the original human data, we just use AI generated data, eventually we're going to start to see this collapse over time. Okay, so hopefully that article helped make it clear. Reason number one is that collapse is not even just a theory, it's actually a mathematical inevitability. If we allow AI to run without us, it will no longer be able to produce working code, okay? So we have to have human software engineers, okay? That's reason number one. Now, reason number two is, let's say AI doesn't collapse. Well, there's another reason why it can't replace real software engineers. And that reason is just as simple as writing code is not the extent of software engineering, okay? It's only one piece of the job. To support this point, I pulled up a survey here from software.com, which collected data from over 250,000 developers in the global community, and they found that developers on average code for 52 minutes per day, about 4 hours and 21 minutes during a normal work week from Monday to Friday. All right, and this is using a standard 8-hour workday. So if you look at the distribution here, you can see that from the median to the 75th percentile, you're coding between 47 to an hour and 25 minutes per day. That means only 10% of developers spend more than 2 hours per day coding. All right. So this should tell you that coding is not the extent of what software engineering is, right? Like, there is much more that goes into it. You have to collaborate with stakeholders. You have to, review design documents. You have to sit in meetings. You have to debug. You have to read documentations. You have to understand trade-offs of which framework should we be using for this particular tool that the stakeholder wants, right? Should we use, Flask or Django, stuff like that. And AI can help with these sort of things, but it cannot replace humans 100%, okay? So hopefully this exemplifies point two of why AI cannot fully replace human software engineers. Lastly, for point three, I'm just going to be making a purely logical argument here, and that argument is about the economic consequences. So if AI were to fully replace engineers, and we can even expand this into other areas where AI could potentially have, a 100% complete impact. If AI were to destroy all these jobs, right, it would also destroy the very economy that these companies rely on. Okay, think about it, right? Like, companies do not use AI for fun. They use it to make money, and that money comes from us, from the people with jobs, the people with paychecks, and people with disposable income. If you replace all of the very people who make up the middle class, software engineers included, then who's actually left to buy all these products that these companies are trying to sell, right? Who's paying for the subscriptions? Who's paying for the apps? Who's paying for all the software that we build with AI? If no one has any money to spend, if we're all unemployed, then nobody is going to be able to buy these products. So it's a paradox, right? The more you automate away real jobs, the more you hollow out the customer base that makes capitalism work in the first place. And so AI just doesn't generate revenue in a vacuum. It amplifies human productivity. And without human productivity, there's nothing left to amplify. So to wrap this up, a lot of people in my last video were convinced that AI is going to make software engineering obsolete, that tech is dead, but here's what we've seen. Technically, models collapse if they don't have fresh human-generated data. Without us, AI literally forgets reality. Practically, software engineering is way more than just typing code, okay? It's design, debugging, collaborating, things that AI cannot replace on its own. And three, economically, even if you could automate all of us away, you'd be destroying the very middle class that keeps the economy running. No customers means no profits. So no, AI is not going to replace software engineers. I do think it is making an impact very negatively for us in the short term, and I do think that long term it is going to change the way that software engineering works. But just like every other big wave of technology that we've seen, we will still be here. And in fact, I think we will be the ones who keep AI alive. So if anything, this is just a moment for us to niche down, level up our skills, learn how to use AI as a tool, but not to fear it as a total replacement. So thanks for watching, and if you got value out of this, drop a like and subscribe, leave a comment below. I've got more content coming, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.